Welcome to my channel. Today we're diving into the spine-chilling horror of Hereditary 2018. Directed by Ari Aster, this film is a masterclass in psychological horror, blending family trauma with supernatural terror. As the Graham family grapples with the death of their matriarch, secrets from their past begin to unravel, revealing a terrifying legacy. Stick around for a deep dive into the twisted events that unfold in this unforgettable film. The film opens with the obituary of Ellen Lee, a woman who has passed away, leaving behind her daughter Annie Graham and her grandchildren. At the funeral, Annie, alongside her husband Stephen and their children, Peter and Charlie, attends with a mix of grief and confusion. Annie delivers a eulogy, acknowledging the complex relationship she had with her mother. She mentions how Ellen was involved in strange, unknown practices that Annie never fully understood. The Graham family resides in a secluded home in the woods, where Annie works as a miniature artist, creating scale models based on her life experiences. These models often reflect moments of emotional significance, including her caretaking of Ellen during her final days. As the family tries to navigate their grief, Stephen receives a call informing him that Ellen's grave has been desecrated, but he keeps this information from Annie. Meanwhile, Annie tucks Charlie into bed, and Charlie, in a seemingly innocent moment, mentions that Ellen had always wished for her to be a boy. While investigating her mother's belongings, Annie discovers a cryptic note from Ellen, apologizing for any past wrongs, but also hinting at some mysterious rewards that are yet to come. As she reads the note, Annie has a fleeting moment where she believes she sees a shadowy figure lurking in the corner, but upon switching on the lights, nothing is there. In an attempt to process her grief, Annie attends a therapy session. There, she opens up about her complicated relationship with Ellen, revealing that her mother had suffered from dissociative identity disorder. She also speaks about the trauma from her childhood, where her brother, who was schizophrenic, constantly accused Ellen of trying to put people in him before he tragically took his own life. Meanwhile, at Charlie's school, a strange incident occurs when a bird flies into a window during a test. After the class, Charlie, in her usual peculiar manner, snatches a pair of scissors and decapitates the bird. She later creates a strange doll from the bird's severed head, showcasing her unsettling behavior. That evening, as she sits in her room, Charlie notices a strange blue flash of light surrounding her. She ventures outside and briefly sees a vision of Ellen surrounded by flames. Before she can fully process it, Annie scolds her, pulling her back into the house. Peter, feeling the pressure of the situation, asks Annie if he can borrow one of the family's cars to attend a party. Despite initial hesitation, Annie insists that he take Charlie along. At the party, Peter abandons Charlie to enjoy himself, leaving her alone. She consumes a slice of chocolate cake with nuts, unknowingly triggering a severe allergic reaction. As Charlie begins to suffocate from anaphylactic shock, Peter rushes to get her to the hospital. In a panic, Charlie sticks her head out of the car window to get some air. However, as Peter swerves to avoid an animal crossing the road, the car crashes violently, and Charlie's head is tragically decapitated upon impact with a telephone pole. In a horrifying display of shock and disbelief, Peter silently drives home, leaving Charlie's body behind. The following morning, Annie's scream of agony echoes through the house as she discovers Charlie's lifeless body in the car. The brutal aftermath of the accident is shown as Charlie's decapitated head is consumed by ants, a stark and chilling visual of the family's deepening tragedy. In the wake of Charlie's tragic death, Annie becomes emotionally detached, finding it difficult to even look at Peter without feeling overwhelming resentment. Her grief isolates her from her son, and she begins to harbor a deep sense of anger and guilt towards him. Peter, too, is consumed by his own guilt, unable to escape the traumatic memories of that night. At school, the weight of his emotions overwhelms him, and while smoking weed with his friends, he experiences a severe physical reaction, his body betraying him in response to his inner turmoil. Alone in his room later, Peter hallucinates seeing Charlie's ghostly presence, hearing the eerie, tongue-clicking sound that she would make, a constant reminder of the accident that shattered their lives. Meanwhile, Annie seeks solace at a support group where she meets Joan, a kind woman who immediately connects with Annie's pain, having experienced the loss of her own child. Joan invites Annie to visit her at her apartment, and there they begin to talk about their respective tragedies. Annie reveals a haunting memory from her past, a sleepwalking incident where she unintentionally doused Peter and Charlie with paint thinner and lit a match, terrifying her children. She explains that even though she tried to convince them it was a sleepwalking episode, the event has left a permanent scar on her family. Joan, in turn, shares that her own son and grandson drowned months earlier, forging an unsettling bond between the two women through their shared grief. At home, Annie continues to immerse herself in her work, but her art takes on a darker, more disturbing direction. She creates a detailed miniature model of the car accident, depicting Charlie's gruesome death with unsettling accuracy. Stephen finds the disturbing creation and, horrified, scolds Annie, urging her to be more mindful of Peter's well-being and hoping to protect him from the trauma of seeing such a graphic representation of the tragedy. That evening, the Graham family attempts a dinner together in an effort to find some semblance of normalcy. However, the dinner quickly spirals into chaos as Annie and Peter engage in a bitter argument. Both are consumed with blame, each accusing the other of Charlie's death, their words laced with anger and pain. The fractured family dynamic becomes even more evident as they are unable to reconcile their grief and guilt. Annie, still searching for answers and a way to process her emotions, visits Joan once more. This time, Joan reveals she is conducting a seance to communicate with her deceased grandson, Louis. Annie, skeptical at first, is soon shocked to witness a paranormal event unfold. As Joan channels the spirit, a glass on the table begins to move, seemingly on its own, and the chalkboard in front of them begins to write, "I love you, Grandma." The force behind the movement is undeniable, and Annie is left stunned, realizing that Joan's claims may not have been delusions after all. This moment marks the beginning of Annie's deeper involvement in the supernatural as she becomes further drawn into a world that defies logic and reason. Annie, already on the edge of her sanity, sleepwalks again one night. This time, her dream takes a darker turn as she finds herself in Peter's room, where she blurts out a shocking and horrifying truth. She never wanted to be his mother and had even tried to miscarry. The nightmarish vision escalates as both she and Peter are covered in paint thinner and set on fire, mirroring the traumatic sleepwalking incident from her past. Annie wakes in a panic, her emotions in turmoil. Driven by desperation, she grabs Charlie's sketchbook in an attempt to reach out to her daughter's spirit. She performs a seance, waking Stephen and Peter to prove that something supernatural is at play. To her amazement, the presence in the room responds. A glass slides across the table, and the flame of a candle flickers unnaturally. As Annie speaks in Charlie's voice, she becomes more convinced that her daughter's spirit is still with them. But Stephen, alarmed and frightened, splashes her with water, breaking the trance and snapping her out of it. Peter, meanwhile, is plagued by hallucinations. He sees Charlie's ghostly presence again, and he begins to feel something pulling at his head. Terrified, he wakes up and accuses Annie of being behind the disturbing sensations, but she denies it, leaving Peter even more unsettled. Believing that Charlie's spirit is angry and seeking closure, Annie decides to destroy the sketchbook by throwing it into the fireplace. But when she does, her arm is suddenly engulfed in flames, forcing her to yank it out and extinguish the fire. In a panic, she rushes to Joan's apartment, desperate for answers, only to find the place abandoned and empty. Back home, Annie's search for answers leads her to the attic. There, she is horrified to discover a swarm of flies and what appears to be her mother's headless corpse hidden in a corner. Above the body is a blood-drawn symbol, its meaning unclear but undeniably sinister. As Annie sifts through an old box of photos, she uncovers images of her mother, Ellen, and Joan, suggesting they were involved in some sort of ritualistic practice. In another book, she finds a terrifying revelation, a demon named Paimon, who seeks to possess the body of a human male. At lunch the next day, Peter sees Joan standing across the street, shouting, "I expel you!" at him. Strangely, no one else seems to notice her, and Peter is left feeling more paranoid than ever. As he tries to shake off the encounter, he begins to see the same blue flash of light that Charlie had witnessed earlier. Later in class, Peter's reflection in the window suddenly grins at him, an unnatural and horrifying sight. His body begins to twist and contort unnaturally, and in a panic, he smashes his face into his desk, breaking his nose in the process. Stephen rushes to pick him up, but the family's nightmare is far from over. As the tension in the Graham household reaches its peak, Stephen confronts Annie about everything that has been happening. Desperate for answers, Annie reveals the horrifying truth she discovered in the attic, her mother's headless body and the unsettling ritualistic symbols. But when Stephen sees the body, he immediately believes Annie is responsible for desecrating Ellen's grave and digging up her corpse. His disbelief escalates into anger, and in a fit of rage, he refuses to listen to Annie's plea to burn Charlie's sketchbook in order to stop the madness. Frustrated and consumed by fear, Annie takes matters into her own hands. She drenches the sketchbook in lighter fluid and throws it into the fireplace. But the consequences are disastrous. As the flames engulf the book, Stephen's body spontaneously combusts, burning alive before Annie's eyes. In a terrifying moment, the blue flash of light overtakes Annie, consuming her as well. In the middle of the night, Peter awakens, unaware of the horrors that are unfolding around him. As he stumbles out of bed, he doesn't notice Annie crawling on the walls behind him, disturbingly and unnaturally. He goes downstairs only to find his father's charred remains, burned beyond recognition. At this moment, Annie attacks Peter, chasing him into the attic. There, Peter discovers his grandmother's decaying body, and as he turns around, he finds Annie levitating above him on the ceiling. In a twisted act of self-mutilation, Annie begins to cut off her head with a wire. It's then that Peter sees a shocking sight. Nude, elderly cult members, including his grandmother Ellen and Joan, are standing around, eerily watching the scene unfold. Now fully engulfed in terror and unable to comprehend the madness around him, Peter makes a final, desperate attempt to escape. He throws himself out of the attic window, seemingly to his death. But in a chilling twist, the blue flash overtakes Peter's body, and he regains consciousness. He stumbles to the nearby treehouse, where Joan and the other cult members are waiting for him. Inside the treehouse, Peter is greeted by a horrifying sight. Charlie's decayed head has been mounted on a statue, crowned and placed beside a picture of his grandmother with the inscription Queen Ellen above it. Joan addresses Peter as Paimon, revealing that they have finally succeeded in providing the demon with a male vessel. It turns out that Charlie all along was just a temporary vessel for the demon, and now with Peter as its new host, Paimon's earthly journey is complete. As the cult members bow before Peter, now fully possessed, they worship him as their new god. The film ends on this chilling note, leaving the audience with a profound sense of dread and an unsettling feeling that, for the Graham family, there was no escaping the sinister forces at play. Hereditary is a slow-burn, psychological horror that expertly builds tension and culminates in an unthinkably tragic conclusion, leaving the fate of its characters forever sealed in darkness. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this recap of Hereditary 2018, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more movie breakdowns. Let me know your thoughts on the film in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take on this unsettling horror masterpiece. See you in the next one.